So today we checking out Ben Shapiro debates me on the atheist delusion. So I am very curious about where this is gonna go. I know growing up through my 20s, heard a lot of Ben Shapiro. He got famous off his whole arc on debating college students and owning them. But after a while, you kind of fall off. You get a little bit smarter. You kind of learn the debate tactics that he got, and then you hear him debate against other people like Matt Dillahunty, Destiny, for example, and it just doesn't hit quite the same. And I'll admit, the one he had with Jordan Peterson was mind numbing. It was mind numbing. At this point, I cannot listen to Ben Shapiro. I mean, what's his name? Jordan Peterson ever talk again? That nigga's which I end up doing for the channel, but we'll see. But I'm always intrigued by things that Alex Connar has to say. I think he has a decent grasp on the Bible, if not better than like 95% of all Christians. And I'm just curious to see where they're going to go to here with Mr. Ben Shapiro. He's a Jewish man, obviously. So I want to see where they're going to go with this. And what's the delusion that atheists are upon? Because I never get this one from religious people or people who believe in God is an atheist is delusioned because they don't hold the position that you do. When the famous quote, they believe in one less God than you do. So instead of believing in Allah, they believe in Jesus. Instead of believing in Jesus, they just believe in the Father. Instead of believing in the Father, they believe in, I don't know, who else you got? Ra, some Egyptian god. But yeah, let's see what it's gonna go. I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Think is an atheist delusion is that it is possible to live ideologically purely in a way that does not rely on fundamental faith principles. When I say faith principles, I'm not going to make the claim that those faith principles are direct from Sinai or that those faith principles require the New Testament, for example. I'm going to make the claim that there are a bunch of principles upon which we base ourselves that are external to what we know about nature and evolutionary biology, and that many of the things that Alex does in his daily life, for example, are going to be things that rely on principles that are external to a philosophy that would assume a lack of the supernatural, a lack of the extra natural. So some of those principles, for example, are free will. So every day we get up, we believe, virtually all of us, whether we say we believe it or not, we actually act in ways that betray the idea that we believe that we have control over our own actions, at least to a certain extent, and that control makes a difference in the world. And that's what gives us purpose. It's what allows us to wake up in the morning and make the decision.
And that is the funny thing about the free will debate, because I don't necessarily believe in free will. I think I believe in will. We have the ability to believe we're making conscious decisions, and yet all of those decisions seem to be allocated or like done outside of us due to different things such as biology, environment, what kind of mood we're in. All those, I guess that'd be biology as well, but it doesn't seem to be like, oh, that person woke up one day and decided to kill somebody. No, everything in their life typically led them to do that. Or if they got imbalance in their brain from different hormones that are not properly balanced, and now that person is have chronic depression. Now that person is ADHD or whatever it may be, whatever disorder you want to go with. It just seems to be more of a thing that we have no control over. Now I'm already seeing where he's going to go with this whole entire thing is that atheists can't have morals because it doesn't make sense with evolution. But again, I'm not a biologist or a scientist or anything like that, but it seems to be accurate that most of the things that we live by now typically lend a hand to us furthering ourselves as a population and becoming more integrated and more easily accessible for those who are usually ostracized and pushed out into the world. So I'm not sure where he's going to go with this, but let's see, because you do not want to go with the Judeo-Christian values. You don't want to go there, Ben. Oh, God.
Decision to do what we believe is right or what we believe is wrong. That the principles of right and wrong are external to evolutionary biology. So both of these principles that I've mentioned already, free will, right and wrong, these come from a language that is external to the Darwinian language of evolutionary biology. If you're talking about free will, there is nothing in nature that suggests the ability to make a decision free of environment and genetics in combination in some sort. The same thing is true of right and wrong. The idea that there is a right and there is a moral wrong that we can reason our way to. Another principle that I think that you're obviously very big on, it's something that you rely on all the time. Your entire podcast is based on the idea of reason. These ideas do not exist in the context of a purely materialist atheist universe. Now, I'm not going to make the claim that I can prove that it's God who's behind those things, because
you can
one
do
of
that.
the principles of faith belief is that I don't understand God. So
And that's something I'm glad he admits to, because I feel like a lot of people fail to admit that. And if you're in a debate against an atheist, that literally will get you in trouble, or an agnostic, doesn't matter which one, who gets you in trouble, because you cannot prove that fact. And once you make a positive claim, you're kind of trapped in that bubble of you need to provide evidence and or proofs to validate that claim. If you can't, then guess what? You already kind of, lost on that point. But I'm glad he admitted that. I'm glad.
for people who don't believe in God, that's an easy way out, right? That's an easy way out for people like me, because I say, well, I don't have to explain the relationship between God and free will, because frankly, I don't fully understand God. But that's not really that's not really an open window. That's just part of pretty much all faith systems, is that if my mind were the mind of God, then I would either be God or God would not exist, one of the two things. So the idea
Or there could be more than one God, depending on how you want to word it.
that reason makes a difference in our lives, that we can reason our way to propositions, and that's more than just saying a few magic words and that's setting off a few neurons in somebody else's brain in a naturalistic way, that there actually is principles of truth, another concept that comes from the extra natural world, that these principles exist. So far I've mentioned free will, good, right and wrong, reason, and truth, right? All things that we consider extremely key in our daily lives, and that Alex considers key in what he does. It's, I assume, why you get up every morning, or at least why you feel you get up every morning. What gets you up to do your podcast? It's because you want to say things that you believe are reasonable, are going to convince people to act in a better way, or I assume not a worse way, that get people to change their lives in some way, in a self-motivated fashion. That's not merely in a sort of Pavlovian response to.
Why does dude in the background look bored? He like, bro, Ben, get to the damn point. You're bloviating too damn much. But let's see. Sorry.
Circumstance and environment. So if I were going to talk about the atheist delusion, that's what I would suggest is the delusion, that an atheist can use terminology that is drawn from a world that is external to atheism for itself. And again, that's not an argument for God even. That's just an argument against atheism. Again, I think the arguments against God are fairly compelling, and I think the arguments against atheism are fairly compelling. This is one of the things that I've said.
Okay, so maybe I'm misunderstanding what he's saying, but I feel like he's saying that just because there are certain things like do not murder, do not steal, do not kill are written in the Bible or within Christianity or some kind of religion, that atheism borrows those concepts from it. But couldn't it just be that those things have always been more or less good or bad? Because if we keep killing each other, our population and our species dies. We keep stealing from each other, that person's going to retaliate against you. It seems like something that would be just like natural. If a caveman bops another caveman, then his son gonna come back and try to bop him. Like, you want to not be, and also selfishness. You don't want to be bopped yourself. So if I go bop somebody, I'm probably gonna get bopped. I'm not seeing where he's going with this so far, but okay. I'm trying to keep up with you, Ben. I'm trying to keep up, because it does not lend a hand to it. Otherwise, why are we not getting it from Islam? Why are we not getting it from anything else? Which I guess Islam is part of Abrahamic religion, so I guess that.
Sam Harris. And I think that the difference is that most people who believe in God have expressed doubts, and a lot of people who are atheists tend to be more religious in this way than many of the people who are God believers.
Well, something's certain. We don't do cold opens or soft starts here on the big conversation. Alex?
Well, I am glad to begin on a point of agreement with you, Ben, that yes, if there is no God, there is no free will, but I think that's because of the truth of the latter of those statements. That I suppose the biggest criticism that I made of you in a video response that I made to the atheist delusion, and this show does seem to have an extraordinary capacity for putting me face to face with people that I've been talking smack about online. So thanks again.
By the way, I should say it's a great video, and everybody should watch it if they haven't.
Well, I'm going to put that in the description. I think that glowing endorsement. The principal disagreement that I think I had with you, Ben, is that there was a subtle, or not so subtle, implication in my view that yes, with no God there's no free will, but somehow having God can solve this problem. I mean, you said a moment ago that you don't think you can establish God's existence through reason alone, but assuming that you do believe in the existence of free will, you think it's a real thing that you have.
Yes.
And simultaneously saying that if there is no God, then free will makes no sense.
Yes.
That does read to me like an argument for God's existence, such that in order to either say that there is free will, in order to say that there is free will, one must believe in God. And that does strike me as an argument for God's existence.
I mean, to slightly curve that, or to kind of sand off the rough edges there, I would say that the argument I made is an argument for something extra natural.
Sure.
Now you can call
Okay.
that God or not.
I mean, you still calling it God, but let me see real quick. So am I tripping? My brain is like trying to rack upon it. Does the Bible say God free will? Because I don't remember seeing it anywhere. I know He gives you the right to choose, but is it actually free will? I need a Bible verse. Like, I don't want to hear people explain. I want a Bible verse. God's gift of free will and love. John 3:14-21. That's not free will. That's about salvation. Free will. Who could be against it? There. The better question. Free will is it comes up right at the beginning of Genesis 2. Adam and Eve had restrictions so they could show obedience to Him, and the Lord God commanded man, saying, "You may freely eat of every." That's not free will though. Good and evil you shall not eat for in love. And then, because then Eve made the choice, not him. So when the woman said, "That's not free will." Know that the term does not appear in the Bible. Most of the Bible states that people choose is responsible for choices that are made. Yeah, like I don't ever see free will in there. Like I'm okay with somebody being responsible for their choices, but yeah, free will's not in the book. I've never seen that shit.
Not God, but the thing that I'm making the argument for is that you cannot get from a materialist Darwinist universe to free will. That is not possible. So I know that the way you solve that is that you say that there is no free will.
That's right.
And what I'm saying to you is you don't act that way.
Of course not.
I hear this all the time. People say, look, you may say there's no...
Hey, before he goes there, I am curious what he's going to say there, because I have had that same thought process, because if there is no free will, how can you punish anyone for any crimes they do? How can you punish anybody for any mistakes they make, or even give them praise for anything they do? Because it's not up to them. So I am very curious what he's going to say here, because I've made like some quick rationalizations on how it will work, but I haven't given like a decent one that like substantiates my opinion in my
free will, but you don't act as though that's the case. I suppose that I'm just confused as to what it would look like for somebody to act as if they believe there was no free will. I mean, the very argument that there is no free will that I subscribe to, at least one of the various forms that it takes, is a sort of Schopenhauerian view that you can do as you will, you just can't will what you will, and that you are essentially just a biological machine reacting to its to its internal and evolutionary drives. That's what's happening. Now, call that nihilistic if you like, that's a separate question, but as to the question of how this would make one act, the idea that this might cause us to sort of lay around in bed all day or something, the very mechanism that I think is responsible for eliminating the possibility of free will, that is, the drives that make people do what they do, like I say, do exactly that. Make people do what they do. They make them get out of bed in the morning. Why do you get out of bed and go and make your breakfast if there's no free will? So you go and get breakfast because there's no free will and something is driving you to do that that's outside of your control.
For sure. So to get back to the nihilism point, which you kind of put aside, so that means that this conversation is essentially worthless in any sort of real sense. I mean, effectively, we were driven here by evolutionary biology and environment to have this conversation. Everybody who's watching this is driven by evolutionary biology and environment to have.
I disagree with the whole this makes it irrelevant conversation, because the same way we just said that the environment affects our ability to act upon our quote unquote free will, this conversation is going to affect millions. I'm going to say maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and if not the people sitting on stage. A conversation with somebody does not always lead to them changing their mind, but it can plant seeds of doubt that are in their subconscious, and it over time lead them to maybe curating and learning about new information that slowly changes their mind completely, and maybe even be on your side in the future. So I disagree with the saying that this entire conversation is worthless at this point. No, I think it has its ability to plant seeds, if not outright change some people off of one hearing. It depends on the person.
A particular reaction to that thing, and ever round the cycle goes. That seems like a very purposeless life. Maybe again, I'm drawing from a realm that is not evolutionarily biologically connected. The word purpose is really, teleology obviously has been taken out of the realm of science pretty thoroughly by atheists and by many people in the sciences, although I would argue that, again, most scientists speak in the realm of teleology literally all the time, and they're borrowing language from the language of teleology, even when they're describing functions of particular body parts, right? The heart pumps blood in order to keep you alive, right? They're constantly using language that's teleological in nature. The real question that I have, and this is what goes to the question that you were asking at the beginning, before the sort of pre-question, which was the good of religion to society, one of those goods is people believing that their free will matters and this actually is a useful thing. So I believe that it is deeply important for people in society to believe that they have the capacity to change themselves and to make different decisions than what biology would drive them to do. So you say, well, it's biology that drives you to get out of bed
And
in the
it
morning.
drives you to change.
It's almost Calvinist and in sort of.
And see, it also makes it like, I think the problem with that line of thought is that what if biology is also driving you to change? If your body is craving more, let's say, to look better, you want to get more women, it's going to probably drive you to diet, probably going to drive you to go for more walks, go to exercise, go to the gym. So you may want these things, you want to change yourself, but it's biology driving you to get there. Or say you want to be smarter, it's going to make you study. These things are still driven by your biological factors. I'm not sure where he's going with that.
The way that it's described, right? It's like you're predestined to get out of bed in the morning, so thus you get out of bed in the morning. But the reality is that we are constantly making decisions as though those decisions make a difference in the universe. And what social science actually does tend to show is that when people believe that they have control over their own actions, that when they believe that they're capable of changing the way that they live, they do make those changes with more alacrity and in better directions than if they don't believe that. If people tend to believe in a deterministic universe, they do act worse. So it may work. This is going to be sort of Straussian in its implications, but that may work for you. You're a very high IQ individual who can somehow reconcile the idea of living a very purposeful life with the idea that actually there's no purpose to anything. But for the vast majority of people, that is not actually.
And that also ticks me off all the time too, is that what's the purpose you're trying to look for? If you're going to religion, your purpose is, let's just say, Christianity. It's to follow in Jesus' footsteps as best as you can and to hope he allows you into heaven so you can praise him forever. Islam is to give all praises to Allah and do exactly what Allah says. Judaism is to do exactly what the Father says. And like, what are we doing? Your purpose in those points is just to praise a deity for the rest of your eternity. That's all it is. And you want to go with agnostic or atheism, is your purpose is whatever you want it to be. So that off rip sounds to a certain extent better to someone who is like agnostic or atheist. Like, I get to pick my own destiny. I get to choose what's meaningful to me instead of someone telling me what's meaningful to me. I'm not sure where you're going with that. And is that a spider? Oh my God, it's a spider. Bloop, 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 bloop. I hate spiders.
How they live. And I would suggest that even in your daily life, you don't get out of bed in the morning thinking, man, my biology is driving me this morning to get on the bike, have a great day, the sun is shining. That's my biology doing this. And I don't think that most people who live purposeful lives, even if they believe that everything they're doing is predetermined by the world around them, by their own biology, I don't believe they actually feel that. They have to engage in what they themselves would term an illusion in order to feel a sense of purpose and meaning in their lives.
Of course, but that's what the evolutionary process, in my view, in my worldview, I should say, has done so well, is provide precisely that illusion. I mean, it's not as that, I mean, you say, look, you don't get out of bed in the morning thinking, gosh, look at my biological
My neurons are firing, yeah.
Of course not, because if I did, then the whole evolutionary purpose that this illusion serves would fall away. I mean, you say that this is a fairly purposeless life, and perhaps the implication is that it's a bit of a depressing one. I didn't come here to inspire optimism in people. I just think it is in fact the case.
By the way.
It is in fact the case that free will doesn't exist, and we may feel very nihilistic towards that, but as a wise man once said, facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts.
And
Facts.
I will say that
Don't
the
care
argument
about your
against free will, in
feelings.
my view, is based upon something broader than just scientific analysis or empirical research. Rather, we can build an argument, I think, from a law of logic, the proposition that P must either be true or false, and it can't be both, it can't be neither. It has to be one or the other. Now, this law of the excluded middle, one of the foundational precepts of philosophy, we can simply ask a question of any kind of mental activity, and this will be regardless of whether it's material or immaterial. That's what makes this a crucial argument, and an important one, a pertinent one, is that you can ask of that mental activity, is it determined or is it not? That is it determined by anything else, or is it completely undetermined by anything? If it's undetermined by anything, then it's random, and you're by definition not in control of that which is random.
Right.
If it's determined by something, then it's either determined by something further inside your mind, or inside your brain, or indeed inside your soul, or it's determined by something external to your brain.
Like a god.
If it's determined by something external to yourself, I should say yourself rather than your brain here to rid this conversation of any implicit materialism.
And I'm just around to give this nigga some credit. The one thing I really appreciate about Alex is that you can tell he is a very smart guy, very well studied, very well um, engrossed in this entire conversation. But yet you can follow everything he's saying with ease. Even the dumbest nigga on earth can understand, oh, what he's saying compared to like Jordan Peterson. He uses so many, oh my God, big words. They just like feel like complete word salad and word vomit. It's like, bro, get to the point. Even Ben, again, I think usually he speaks in a way that's like very easy to follow. Like it's never a point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know where he's going. He just speaks a lot. He speaks really fast and speaks a lot, and that's coming from somebody who also speaks a lot and speaks fast. So it's funny to see me knock that in him, but also like it in myself, and a few other people I like it in too. But okay.
Exterior to yourself, if that's what's determining the action, then clearly you're not in ultimate control of that action. If it's something inside of yourself somewhere, then all you do is push the problem back and you ask the question again, is that thing determined or is it indeterminate? So indeterminate, it's random. Determined, you keep going back until you either terminate in something outside of the self, something, or I suppose something undetermined and therefore random, either of which you are completely out of control in. If you say that it terminates in something like a soul, people like to do this. They say, well, look, with a religious philosophy, we have the benefit of introducing a soul. That doesn't solve anything. Because you still need to, it's not a matter of having to explain the mechanism by which the soul brings about actions. That may well be a mystery. But if it is the case that whatever it is that's doing that is either determined or it's not, and that if it's not, it's random and therefore out of your control, and that if it is, it ultimately terminates in something outside of yourself or something random, and both of which are out of your control, free will cannot exist.
Well,
so I would be careful.
That argument does rely on the complete deconstruction of the self. Right? I mean, you're using the term self in this argument in, I think, a couple of different ways. You're saying something outside yourself, but then you're breaking down the self into a bunch of separate components as though the self is a computer. Right? As though if you took the self and you broke it down into a machine, and there's like the microchip, and you've got the processor, you've got all these different parts of it. So it has to be coming from here, or it has to be coming from here. But I think the very idea that we have of ourselves as selves is as a deciding being. And so the attempt to carve that down into, so which parts of the deciding being, that is an avoidance strategy. So I don't think that the argument quite holds.
Well, if we can call the self just a deciding being,
call it a deciding being,
then that sort of fundamental assumption that we make about the nature of the self, I don't think is going to be incompatible with atheism.
How so?
Because we're talking about what the self is here. I mean, atheists believe in the self. Everybody.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. House out. He got lost for a second. Even I got lost there for a second. I'm like, okay. So that is talking about the self, like in mind, body, and soul, which all three are still one. Trinitarianism. So like he was saying that he was separating the three, but I feel like he wasn't separating the three. He was just breaking it down to much easier to understand components. And I guess doing the reduction argument, I think it's like, I think they call it infinite regress, something like that. To a certain extent, it's like, okay, cool. But then he re-simplified and said, even if you just start at the base level and it just gets to the random, then it doesn't matter at that point. So I'm not sure where he was trying to go there. But I actually like this conversation between them two. Like, I feel like this is one of the few times Ben is not insufferable. Like he's actually having his ideas challenged. And I think that's something that he doesn't get that much in a lot of the debates or the talks he has. He doesn't get challenged enough.
But he believes in the self.
Well, no, that's not. I mean, that I find difficult to believe. Why would an atheist believe in the self? The self is a series of non-deciding mechanisms, as you've described. I see that your view of the self is an atheist view of the self, a meatball wandering through space, as I've put it somewhat colorfully. The sort of Spinoza idea that you're a stone that's been thrown, and you can comprehend that you've been thrown, but you're a stone that's been thrown, and that's just the way that it is. Why would there be in atheist philosophy such a thing as a deciding self? The deciding self, the deciding being, is external to the idea of an evolutionary cause, because the very word deciding suggests uncaused decision making, and you've just excluded it through your own philosophy.
Uncaused decision making, I suppose, is a concept that I think is unintelligible, and therefore, if there is an unintelligibility of the self on atheism, I suppose the thrust of the criticism that I made to essentially every point you made in that video, except for the argument from motion, is that what you're saying to me, if it applies to atheism, I think simultaneously applies to theism as well.
How so?
An uncaused decision. I mean, what is the process by which a decision is made?
But now you're falling into the same sort of argument that I excluded at the beginning, which was, I said that the beauty of religion is that there's a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So,
and that's such a like a a cop out answer. It's things I don't understand. Well, a lot of things that you do understand. God Himself said, and I quote, "There is nothing done that is not God breathed." Or I create good and evil. I create vessels for honor and dishonor. Is that the potter's ability or right to have control over the clay? So in so many words, He's telling you, nigga, everything that's gonna happen in your life, I've already written it. It's already said it's gonna be done. So even when you go by that logic, even from my understanding of the Bible, is that there still is no free will. You're acting upon choices like a video game character NPC acting on the dialogue tree. You are stuck inside of the system, so you can't see that you are acting in the exact way that you were destined to make, and you can't choose anything different. Even if you right now think about ice cream, like I want some chocolate, you go, haha, I tricked you. I got vanilla. That doesn't change the fact that you was always gonna get vanilla. You just thought about it and you thought you were doing it because you're in the delusion, you're in the illusion. So whether it's God, biology, Cthulhu, whoever you want to be, you're still a computer program. You're still stuck in that illusion, no matter what. In my opinion, that's how I've always thought about it. But yet you still move like you have free will because my actions still matter. If I still do something stupid, do something bad, I'm still going to go to jail. So I'm influenced by the fact of knowing that I do something illegal or I do something wrong to somebody. There's going to be repercussions. There's going to be a punishment. I'm still going to act in accordance to those outside external factors. It's going to make me behave in a certain way. Versus somebody who doesn't fear those factors, and then they will still act in a way that one of those factors already knew they would. So it still happens regardless. I don't know. I ain't a philosophy student. I need to do some philosophy lessons here soon. I need to keep up on ontology and all that kind of shit. I need to know about this stuff.
I can't explain to you how the uncaused self makes decisions.
Well, then I can't explain to you how the uncaused self exists on an atheistic
But you have a
framework.
burden and I don't. Meaning that
I don't think that's the case.
You do though.
Explain
What
to
do
you
you
how
say?
the uncaused self exists on an atheistic
But you have a
framework.
burden and I don't. Meaning that
I don't think that's the case.
You do though. I mean, the simple fact is
I
that
don't
you are
know
the
what
one
you
who's
said.
claiming that a reasonable materialist universe is the cause of all. And so, if that's the case, you do have to explain the mechanism in a way that I certainly do not. My entire philosophy rests on the positing of an entire realm of things I don't understand in terms of their interaction with the world. Now, as I said at the very beginning, that leaves me a giant escape hatch. I'm not going to pretend that that's not a giant escape hatch. It acts in practice as a giant escape hatch. It also tends to act as a fundamental principle of faith, right? Again, in every moral realm, right? When we get to the problem of good and evil, right? One of the big questions is, well, how can God allow evil to take place in the world? And the fundamental religious answer, as it has been for thousands of years, is my mind is not God's, which is a giant escape hatch. It also happens to be true from a religious point of view.
And that's something I love and hate about that is that at least he's doing what people I think are not willing to do. Is to admit that they can't see it, but at the same time they're doing it. They're not doing it in a genuine way. They're doing it as in a way of saying, haha, I'm getting out of that problem. Like I feel like one of the first things I did when I deconverted into a agnostic like 10, 15 years ago was I embraced saying I don't know. Like when I don't know about evolution, how did abiogenesis or biogenesis create life? Nigga, I don't know. I ain't a scientist. Or how you know the Earth ain't flat? Nigga, I don't know. I ain't NASA. So it's a certain level of I don't know, which is technically an escape hatch as well. But it's also a humbling yourself and admitting I do not know. But on the flip side, when it comes to the problem of evil, I highly disagree with Ben and a lot of people on this one. The problem of evil is God. It's God. And let's be clear. I'm not saying that God is evil. No, I'm just saying that he creates evil. He clearly states, like, what Bible verse is that? Where he literally states, I create, let me see. I, God, create good and evil. What Bible? Is it Isaiah 45:7? I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity and create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. Or the Bible verse where he says, if there is calamity in the city, has not the Lord done it? Like Amos 3:6 says, when a trumpet sounds in the city, do not the people tremble? When disaster comes to a city, has not the Lord caused it? So that's one where I'm always like, bro, how in the world can you sit there and say you don't know the problem of evil when God himself says he does it? Satan didn't get here by accident. He put him there. No, the devil has no power on his own from what I keep seeing in the Bible. Maybe somebody can show me somewhere else where he has his own free will. But every single time I see him in there, he's typically asking the Father, hey, bro, can I do this? Hey, bro, can I tempt Job? Hey, bro, can I take Jesus out to the wilderness and tempt him real quick? Like, there's nothing he can do on his own without his own volition. And I seen somewhere else, is there a Bible verse about David? And God, what's that? And God used Satan to limit the numbers of the children. Is that of David? I think it's of David. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. And David said to Job and to the rulers of the people. Does that say Job? Wait. Oh, yeah. Then the same story is here in 2 Samuel. He says, taking the census is David's increasing to trust in God's ability to instead of trusting his own Israel on the. I don't think it. I gotta find the actual one. 2 Samuel 24, and the Lord was kindled. Yeah. And then in 2 Samuel it says again, the Lord of Lord. Oh, sorry, but I cannot read now. And again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, "Go number the children, Israel and the Judah." So the king said to Job. So this time the Lord did it, but over in the last one, we saw that Satan stood up against Israel. So I think they call it the law of agency. That's what I heard somebody say before. Is that God makes these people or makes these entities do what he wants. He has all control. And so that's what I personally believe of Jesus, is that he's also an entity controlled by God. As he says himself, he has no power outside of what the God or the Father wills. He can only do what the God allows him to. Only says what the Father allows him to. So it's like the exact same thing. But anyway, I'm on a tangent.